Welcome to the Quigley Dreamcast, the podcast where we have real conversations with entrepreneurs, artists, and everyone in between about chasing big dreams and surviving the mess along the way. I'm your host, Sean Quigley. My whole life, I've been passionate about art and business. I spent my early years as a drummer and a music producer, and today I run the Quigley Dream Company with my wife, Carly. Digital media and storytelling has taken us around the world, collaborating with incredible artists and businesses. Throughout our adventures, I've had conversations that have changed my perspective on life, creativity, and chasing your dreams. This podcast is my way of bringing you into those moments, giving you a front row seat to inspiring stories, honest struggles, and the lessons learned along the way. Welcome to the Quigley Dreamcast. On today's episode, we sit down with the incredibly talented Ariel Posen, whose slide guitar playing has earned him a global reputation as one of the most respected in his field. Ariel has toured the world, released critically acclaimed albums such as How Long and Headway, and shared the stage with legendary artists like Eric Clapton, John Mayer, The War on Drugs, and ZZ Top, just to name a few. Beyond his undeniable talent, Ariel is one of the kindest, most genuine individuals I've had the pleasure of meeting. He brings a wealth of knowledge on building a successful music career while navigating the delicate balance between personal and professional life. This conversation was deeply insightful and inspiring for me, and I hope it will be for you too. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Ariel Posen. Dude, thank you for doing this.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's funny, the other day at the pizza shop, like where you sound check for your show,
Yeah.
we went out for pizza, and we just kind of started talking kind of about what this conversation would be.
Yeah.
And then we had to stop.
Yeah, we're getting carried away.
We're like, we can't have this conversation now. We need to have this conversation
Yeah, it was
later.
easy. Felt natural and easy to start jumping into it, but we had to show restraint.
Yes.
I'm glad we did.
Yes, absolutely. What inspired you to even want to have this conversation today? Because we kind of alluded to that about, like, you know, if we're just exclusively going to talk about guitar,
Right.
maybe that's not that interesting to you at this moment.
Well, you know what? It's not that it's like not interesting, and guitar, like what I do, which is, you know, writing songs, playing guitar, singing, like that's who I am, and like I'll talk about it all day if I have to.
Yeah.
But it's also refreshing and fun to not talk about it and to focus on other aspects of like this big picture that is, you know, doing the art, making art, and just doing the thing.
Right.
Whatever that means. Everyone has a different way of doing that.
Yeah.
And that's exciting to me. So, yeah, I'm just up for it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you remember a moment in your life where you kind of decided, like, you know, I don't think I'm going to have a normal job, or like I'm going to pursue a career in art, or like, do you remember, was there like a defining moment, like super young for you?
It actually was. Yeah. Both my parents are musicians.
Okay.
So I was brought up in a really musical family, played piano and guitar and stuff like from a very early age. So I was always into it, and none of my friends were until I was like kind of near the end of high school. And then, met other people kind of near that time that started developing what was like my community. Mm-hmm. But it was a slow road to get there, because I was through high school, and no one thinks in high school, you know, when you go to your guidance counselor and they're like, well, you're really into biology, little Timmy, right? You're going to go into sciences at U of M, right? And for me, they were just like, well, you like music. Yeah, don't do that. Right? But they're like, you also play a lot of basketball. I played a lot of basketball in high school. Mm-hmm. That was kind of like the other half of my life. I was pretty good, but I was like nowhere near. It's not like I was going to play in university or professional, but At that time, it was like a gigantic part of my life. And they were like, have you ever considered going into like athletic therapy or something like that? You could work on for an NBA team. I was like, what?
Right.
That sounds amazing.
Right.
And like, I never really cared in high school about working. I was just into music, hanging out with my friends, and basketball. That's all I did. It's not that I was really lazy. I just didn't care.
Did you have like a part-time job?
Many, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Worked at pizza shops. I was delivering papers. Worked at a call center selling everything from CDs to pantyhose.
Awesome.
Not even joking.
Awesome.
Yeah, a lot of random jobs, but pretty fast. Luckily, like I started playing gigs. Like someone gave me money to play music when I was 14. That's how early I started.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like, oh my God, I just got $30 to play a backyard birthday party with two other guys. But that was kind of already there. So it's almost like I didn't think it could be a reality. And long story short, I told my parents I want to go to university to take athletic therapy. You're going to take all these sciences. And they're like, okay, we know you hate all this, but we support you.
Right.
And I never took sciences and stuff like that. So I went into university. My first class, U of M, what's it called? U1 or something like that, where like you just general
all intro
courses.
Course. I never went to university, so I don't know.
Well, I barely went. My first class was biology. There's like 300 people in a theater, and the prof is on a screen from 20 years earlier.
Whoa!
All right, everybody, we're gonna jump into it. The screen's crackling and blurry, and I'm like, I think right then and there, I was like, I think I made a gigantic mistake.
Whoa!
So it was a few months, but I dropped out of all that.
Yeah.
And then just kind of, I still had a few odd jobs, but within that year of starting university, I decided, you know what, I'm going to fully just jump in. And I remember having a conversation with a friend who was kind of playing music professionally. And we ended up on a gig together playing for some artist. And he said, he was complaining actually about the payment for it, and I was so fresh and green, I didn't give a shit. But he was just, yeah, like they should really be paying us more because like this is what we do for a living,
right? And
it clicked for me right there. I didn't really consider that, like really that could be an option,
sure,
or a reality. And kind of at that moment, I was like, yeah, you're right. This is a thing. Mm-hmm. So that's where it started, and like. For the longest time, like I've always been writing music just for myself and being in bands that had elements and outlets for creating and being original and authentic. But the majority of the first 14 years of my career, if you will, or more, was just as a side musician, side hired gun,
sure,
which I loved.
Yeah, guitar player.
Exactly.
And you just became obsessed. Like, were you obsessive about being great?
I think so. I mean, I was obsessive with getting gigs.
Whoa, interesting.
Like I just wanted to work and I guess be successful. But yeah, I also was obsessive with being as good as I could be. Being like the best me as possible, not necessarily being the best. Because that's just not really, in music, it gets, everyone thinks it's like that. It just,
right.
It's not. Because it's all subjective, it's all different, and it's art. At the end of the day, it's subjective.
Yeah.
So I was really, I guess I'm just really inspired really early. And once I started taking it seriously, like going back to my high school or like school journey, I was telling you, I never cared. I did not put effort in because I did not give two shits about it. But once I suddenly like was serious about, and I started playing guitar when I was like 8 years old, but it really wasn't until I was 16, 17 that I was like, I need to start taking this way more seriously.
Sure.
And like understand what I'm doing, understand why I'm doing it, understand why this is this and that is that. And I feel like I'm still on that road. Still a lot of work to do, always,
Yeah.
But that fueled me and continues to fuel me, I think, to keep evolving, keep exploring, like never settling. They always say like comparison is the thief of joy, but also settling is just like is a dead end because you stop pushing yourself, you stop caring, and you stop learning and you stop evolving. So I try to always avoid that we all get in slumps where we don't feel motivated or inspired, or we're just burnt out, which is something I did not experience early on, but I guess we'll get to that. But
Yeah,
no, it's interesting.
This episode is brought to you by the Quigley Dream Company. At the Quigley Dream Company, we specialize in bringing your vision to life through powerful storytelling, stunning video production, and live event experiences. Whether you're looking to tell your brand story, capture unforgettable moments, or take your event to the next level, we're here to make it happen. So, if you've got a dream, visit thequigley.com to get started today.
before we started rolling, we kind of realized like, well, we've both been married for 10-ish years. We've both been with our partner for, right, me 14, you 16. Tell me about that. Like, what's your family like?
Yeah, well, my wife, similar to you guys, we had met when we were pretty young. Like, I'm 3 years older than her, so yeah, I was like, I forget how old I was, but like we started dating in my early 20s.
Sure.
And you know, as you know, when you start really young, you really go through what feels like a million different lives. Because you know, like your 20s are just so interchanging, and they're like I felt like I wasn't really myself until I was maybe like early 30s. That's when I feel like I you know, it's like you're a kid and you're like, what is my life? And then you're in high school and you're like, this is the rest of my life. And then you finish high school and you're like, oh, life is just starting now. Yeah. And then you kind of early 20s, you're whatever, you're just kind of a little carefree, and then there starts to be more accountability. And then by the time you get to 30, you start pushing out the things that don't matter, and you just kind of focus in more on what. This is just my journey, by the way, but
you have no idea how much what you're saying is like vibing with me right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's hitting me like hard, because like I'm about to turn 30 in March, and like I honestly feel like that chapter in my life, I'm like on that shift of like, oh, this is like, I think not that I've landed, because you never land. Yeah. But I feel like there's like this is what I value. Like, I'm starting to figure out what my core beliefs are. Yeah. And like the distress I feel when my actions don't align with those core beliefs. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just prioritize things more. You really like, you push out the noise. And you know, for some people, like myself included, like just like music and stuff like that, there's always work to do. Like, it never ends for yourself on a personal level. But I feel like you care a lot less about the things that don't matter, and you care way more about the things that do. Therefore, you can kind of really, I don't know, just be more focused with everything, and hopefully do a better job. I think I've always been like a driven person with stuff like that. And even in my 20s, I was like super driven. I was like not a party type of person. I'm like a extrovert and an introvert, like in that middle. So I'm always hanging out, staying up late, but never to a point where it affected workflow. And like, I was always productive. We were just talking about it before we got on about when the world slows down around this time. It's December 23rd. Yeah. Do you keep working? And like, yeah, I've always been that kind of person. So that wasn't like something that once I turned 30, I started becoming way more efficient. I think I was before. It also just has to do that when I turned early 30s is when I transitioned into being an artist and whatnot. Sure. And kind of, it just naturally happened too. But that, I could kind of fly by the seat of my pants waiting for the email or waiting for a call to come in of like, what am I doing next month? Oh, guess we're doing this. That's fun.
Right. You're hopping on a tour for X amount of time. Yeah. That's how the calendar gets filled.
Well, I never had to do any planning or, you know, now I have to plan my whole life 8 months in advance. Right. Or early or more. Yeah. I know we're jumping around topics here, but
no, I think it's good. Yeah. I think it's good. Like you had kind of mentioned, like you're able to focus more on what's important. I mean, I want to ask the question, what's important to you? What are those things that come to mind when you say that? Like,
I think there's like the obvious things that should be important to someone is like your relationships and your health and your, I guess, physical health, let's say that. But the thing that I still think is not prioritized and somewhat normalized is just recognizing, especially in an industry like music where you're, it's kind of cutthroat, but it's you can really get hard, like get down on yourself, is like just your own mental health and like just being happy.
Whoa.
Like when it's not, you know, it's highs and lows is what I mean.
Yeah.
So
like your happiness isn't defined by like the high of the show or the success of a thing you did or whatever. Like it's deeper than
trying
that.
to
Trying to balance that out.
Not have not let your happiness come from just be only defined from work things.
Yeah.
Like you should have it from other places. And I'm like, you know, it's what I'm working on. I'm always.
Me too, man.
For everyone, I think this is going to be a normal kind of a thing, but it's really easy when you put everything into something and focus on it 110%.
Yeah.
And when it's great, you might not appreciate it. And when it's not so great, you forget all the good stuff. And then you only focus on what you think is negative. Therefore, it affects you. And then you kind of get consumed by that. And then you realize, wait a minute, why is this the only thing in my life that I'm attributing to being happy or sad? Like there's all these other great things in my life. So it's hard to, so that's what I think, at least these days, is the most important thing is, it's like, maybe it's not even being happy. Like, be happy and be in a good place, but just having good balance of everything. I think that's the ticket.
Yeah, and defining what that is for you, because it's going to be different for each person. Like, while you were talking, I'm thinking about in my own life, like, I feel like in a lot of ways, it's like a sine wave. A continual sine wave of like, there's moments where you're riding a high of a project or a thing that you're excited about. And then for me, at least sometimes almost immediately after, it can be like this like, feeling. Yeah. Maybe you go do a big stretch of tour, right? Like you were just in Europe for how long?
About 3.5 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, 3.5 weeks of shows in Europe, and like people are coming. You go to a new country, a new city, every place, and people are coming. Yeah. Dude, that's crazy. Like a lot of people would think that's the pinnacle for me, like the ability to do that. What does it feel like coming off of that and then going back into real life? Because you have a real life.
It's an adjustment.
Yeah.
There's a bit of like a crash, it's not, first of all, like I'm not a type of person that, not a prima donna. I don't need I'm not an attention seeker. Yeah. What I do involves, my name is on the marquee of wherever I'm playing, and I have to promote myself a lot. I don't, you know what I'm trying to say here? Like, I don't care about that. I don't care about the attention. And
that was the vibe I got from you, like, immediately. I think one of the first shows I filmed, like, you and your whole team, like, John, like, Manny, like, you guys are just, like, very welcoming and very... I think the word humble is probably overused, but like you're not you guys are just not divas. Like you're just trying to make music and have fun. Exactly. The environment was fun. I go backstage and everyone's joking.
Yeah. We just want to laugh.
Yeah.
And play a show. That's what we're signed up to do. But like when it's done, you're asking like there is a lull, at least for me, and it doesn't come from needing the attention, needing like this affirmation from a crowd. Yeah. But there's like there's a down period because like you're doing this thing, you're getting this like adrenaline rush every night. Yeah. Not only are you playing your own music that you've written and worked on to people that are accepting and applauding and loving it, but you do it in a new, beautiful, sometimes not so beautiful city every night. And sometimes in a different country. So I find, and I would say that the majority of touring artists and bands have a few days of straight up rot after a tour. Yeah. Well, it's also tiring, but it's more so mental. It's not like you're you're tired from lifting amps and stuff like that. That's a thing. But for me, it's like this mental shift where I have to recalibrate, because also, your home life is different. You have to reset. You have to you get home and oh yeah, I should do these dishes, throw out the garbage, feed the cat, do this, and I can jump right back into that immediately. But yeah, I feel like I'm a little foggy the first couple days mentally. So I try to follow things up, and I'm not a workaholic, but I like to be productive. And I always liked, because I feel like when I don't have things going on or enough going on, and this is just my own thing, is I feel like I must be doing something wrong. So I like to always have stuff to look forward to and stuff to always work on. So finished this tour, and this has been planned forever. Came here actually to the studio to start my next record. Yeah. So I could shift my focus. I actually got really sick after the tour. Everyone on the tour got sick except me, and then it hit me after. So I had to get through that. Kind of the perfect time to get sick right after a tour. But I went from this mode of shows, performing, blah blah blah, straight into these songs I've been writing for a year. Time to record them. Time to go to this, which is a completely different experience and rewarding, and one of my favorite things to do. So I don't know, having like I said, balance. Yeah. I guess I'm bad at just not doing anything, but it's important to sometimes not do anything too.
It's important to know yourself though, and know the things that help you. I think everyone has copes, and some of them are incredibly healthy and some of them are incredibly unhealthy. I've been in the music industry for a minute too, and we both know the side of it, of the unhealthy copes. We experience that with tons of different people, right? Myself included. And I think balance is interesting, trying to rein that in, and I think it's good to know. It seems like there's a part of you that wants to say, yeah, I need to do nothing. Be yeah, but you don't want to though. Yeah. You enjoy the process. And do you think people underestimate the emotional and mental tax that is performing every night and being vulnerable? You're singing songs that mean something to you. You created this art, you created this stuff, and it's almost like you're opening your heart to people for that moment. That's draining. You're not just sitting at a desk working.
Right. It's good draining though. Yeah. That's what's rewarding, because it's therapeutic. It's all these things. It's it's important. It's a good question. I think 50% of people probably recognize what goes into it, and they can see that. A lot of them too are probably, at least my audience, are a lot of musicians too, and fellow songwriters, and so they know. And then I think a lot of people just show up just wanting the experience, or they like songs, and they don't recognize, with any artist really, what goes into a song and what it means. And that's fine. I will never tell anyone how to absorb my music, or however you need to take in art, that's up to you. It gets to a point where it's yours when you're working on it, and then you push it out, and then it's everyone else's. Yeah. And they're all allowed to take it in however they want it. Yeah. And you know what? I don't think, if someone likes it, great. If it's not someone's thing, that's fine too. Of course. How much stuff do we not care for? It's all subjective. And if someone says, wow, I really connected with that song because it made me think of my own experience where I was in a thing, that's amazing. What if someone just goes, hey man, sweet riff in the chorus, without listening to the lyrics? That's fine too.
Because you care about that too. You wrote a sweet riff. You're I just wanted this to feel good.
Yeah, but not even. It's just more hey, I'm more thankful, I think. It's just thanks for listening, and just take it. It's the best thing about at least music is it connects. So many different things connect with different people in so many ways. Yeah. And it's not up to you decide for them what connects. Like, sure, you wrote this song about this thing that happened that's really important to you, and there's this lyric in the second verse that's like a zinger. It's like really,
Yeah.
But like, if no one notices it and doesn't react to it, that doesn't matter.
Right.
That's for you. Just like let them enjoy it the way they want to. So that's really important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not looking for like, I mean, I guess to tie back to what we were saying earlier, like not looking for validation in other people's responses to your art.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I've seen a lot of people say this and I agree with it. Like we make music or whatever art it is, like you make it for yourself first and foremost. That's what's authentic. That's what makes people themselves and authentic. After that, it becomes everyone else's. And like, I feel like if you're not truly making something that's you, that resembles you, people don't believe it as much. And again, it doesn't matter that if they believe it or if they're on board, but I don't think you're going to believe it to the same degree until you have to be a bit more vulnerable and just like trust your gut and write about or play or record, whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
Just like, well, first of all, like don't compare to anyone, which is the most important thing, and a struggle, especially in the digital age. Like it's all we do, even whether or not we realize it. But just being you and doing it your way and just tunnel visioning yourself is like the most rewarding thing if you can latch on to that, I think.
How do you protect that?
I think I just keep reminding myself. I've had a lot of experiences in the last couple of years, which are mind-blowing experiences where, 15, 16-year-old me would have been like, oh man, this would never happen. I've had a few of those moments.
Yeah.
And I think that the younger version of me thought if these things ever happen, I'd have to, it would play out a different way because I would have to cater to whoever's in the room to do something to please them. And what I've realized in these situations is like you get into these rooms or situations because of the opposite. You're being yourself.
Whoa.
So like if you're just being yourself and not worrying about, you don't have to worry about anything or anyone of what they think because you're already there because you're you. It's not about because you're the best and you're not the worst. You're just you. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
So I keep kind of latching onto that. Not saying that just because you're you and just because you're original and authentic means you don't have to put work in. Hell no. Like,
of course.
But I kind of latch onto that and it makes me pretty, I wouldn't even say confidence, the word is just content. Like I'm not looking over my shoulder and like, shit, I hope this is okay. Or I just go, well, it might not be okay, but it might be, whatever.
Yeah.
It's going to do the thing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a better place for me to, healthier place for me to live.
Yeah. Because the target is authenticity.
Yeah.
The target is like, I love the word content. Use the word content. Like, yeah, you're not worried about the audience. It's like, it's a little cliche, but like the Rick Rubin thing, like the audience comes last, right? Like focus in on like, do you find when you're trying to write, like, do you have to be mindful of that? Like, what is that process like for you?
I definitely write with no intention of, is this going to hit hard or, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You can't, once you start working on production and stuff, I think you start, this could be satisfying. This could be a really nice moment.
Sure.
But the writing process for me starts, it's like very much like how anyone writes. Starts with an idea and find a topic or like something that means something. And like, just for me, whether I'm writing by myself or writing with, like co-writing with someone.
Yeah.
I just try to always finish what I start. And at least I try to tell all other, not, I guess, aspiring songwriters, like it's so hard writing. I find some people just every day they're writing and it's not like that for me. It's like
right.
if I schedule something like a co-write with someone, that's one thing. But if it's rare that I just sit down one day, make a coffee, and I'm like, oh, let's see what happens today. I'm just going to write something. It doesn't work like that for me. It has to be something just needs to happen, and I have to have an idea. And then I'll be driven, and I'll finish it right then and there.
Yeah.
But what I was saying about just finishing stuff, I think my process, it's very important to just finish what you start, because if you kind of get into a habit of like, 100 unfinished songs instead of like 10 or 20 finished songs, it's not going to do you much good. You're always going to be in this headspace of like, I'll get to that later. I don't know if that was good enough. It's, the more you commit,
sure.
I'd rather write like 10 really bad songs that are finished than have 50 unfinished songs. And I think it's just maybe it's some OCD, but it's also, it's a good habit to have, because it's like going to the gym, you start going, you don't go to the gym forever. It's so hard to go there. And you finally go for a session or two, and like you can't not go. You just get stuck in it, and it becomes easier, and you're less sore each time, and it feels good. And songwriting is like that for me.
Yeah.
Like I'll always have ideas. My phone is filled with voice memos, millions of ones that'll probably never see the light of day, but maybe I'll just sing something in the phone, or I'll play something on tour or in sound check. Oh, that's a cool idea,
Yeah.
But in terms of sitting down and writing it, I have to just be in the right mindset. So I try to write almost seasonally. Like I put out a record at the end of last year, September 23. Last time I saw you before, a few days ago.
Yep.
Around that Park Theater time, that show.
Yep.
And leading up to that, I had 30 songs for that record, worked on it. By the time it was done, we were just touring from August to, I guess, February of this year.
Yeah.
So starting January 1st of this year, it was like writing season again. So I'd book writing sessions. I'd just write on my own, but I hadn't written a song all of last year because it was all prep for this album release and touring. So that works well for me to like I was saying, we finished all this touring December last year. So it was like go from end of tour to writing mode. That's exciting to me. It's like chapters are really cool for me, I guess. But yeah, I'm a seasonal writer, I guess.
It feels like that. It feels like your life has seasons.
Yeah, it does.
It does, man. It feels like
that.
your life has seasons, and like you're aware of it and you like it, and like you live in that space and it works for you.
I think I like structure.
I'm picking up on that.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting, because I think a lot of people think of creatives as like these sporadic, burn in the midnight oil, no plan, just paint on a canvas, brilliance type individuals. And like sometimes.
A lot of times.
I
still identify like that with writing and creating still.
Yes.
Absolutely.
In that pocket, like you're like, this is my moment, paint on canvas, like that's it.
Yeah. It's like way past a deadline, but I got this idea that this song has to go on the album now. We have to go back. Or I've already finished the album, but I've decided I think I can do this verse or this song better.
Right.
Let's go back and do it. Even though it's too late, let's just do it.
Yeah.
But in terms of like structure and having to live so in advance, I think you have to do that, because you can tell when it's all about execution. And everyone's an amazing songwriter. Everyone's an amazing artist. Everyone's, I'm not out here trying to say I separate myself from anyone else, because a lot of people think the same way too. But normally you can tell when you don't notice that there's been months and months of lead up, but when things feel right, when you see a band announce something or an artist, there's some kind of campaign going on, if you want to call it. I feel like I notice like, wow, this has been brewing. This is a year of brewing right here. And I'm here. I get fired up by the planning, because once something's out there, in like putting out a record, for example, I'm helping one of my best friends out. I've produced a few songs for him, and this is one of my like earliest high school music friends, and just friends, not just a music friend, but We love music. Anyways,
Of course.
he has never put out music, and so I've like tried to help him as much as possible, and he just wants to like, well, I'll just release it next week, all of it. And I'm like, don't do that, because releasing music and releasing anything, movies, it's all about the lead up.
Yeah.
And once the thing you're putting out is out in the world, it's kind of done. So the more time you give yourself to do something with it, that's like the most vital time. And I get excited by that. I like, I don't know. I like the lead up to things.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important. And you can tell, what I'm trying to say is I can tell when people understand that and execute it the right way. Not to say I always execute it the right way, but I definitely try.
Yeah, for sure.
It's all, this whole career is throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks, you know?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It's also like, I feel like, to draw back to our earlier comments, like having that structure like allows you to prioritize your mental health too, though, because you can anticipate what's coming. You can at least like, you live in a creative space, but you don't live in chaos.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Yeah. I think everyone's different, you know, like some of my friends who are like the most genius
Yeah.
songwriters, singers, whatever, like are some of the most scattered, mentally just wrecked people I know.
Totally.
But that they need to be like that. They need to be like tortured.
That's their gift to the world. It's painful for them, but it's beautiful for us.
Exactly. So you just need to, I think, just hone in on what your strengths are. And I'm just like the organized guy.
Sure.
Try to be organized and try to be in advance and not let that dictate any art, but it's always big picture. I'm always thinking not just in the now, like, hey, sweet, I got 10 songs. It's about like, well, no, you have these 10 songs, but what if you added those 2 other ones on and maybe you release them later, or can you do another version of these songs, or how's a different way you can present these songs? Can you do a, you know,
like the Redux?
Sure. Yeah. Stuff like that. Or
very cool.
How you're touring. Like, I love touring with the guys and playing shows. I was like, that's who I am. I love that. But what if I did these by myself? Like to do a solo tour or something like that. So stuff like that. I just try to find different ways and throw shit at the wall, see what sticks.
Yeah.
You know?
You tour a lot.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
I do and I don't. I think it looks like I tour a lot more than I do.
Sure.
I'm definitely a road dog, but you will not see me going on the road for longer than, if it's up to me, no more than 2 weeks at a time ever.
Why is that?
Because it just destroys me. So I learned at an early age, or not an early age, in my late 20s, I guess, being part of bands that, you know, away 200 days of the year or more, you see some real, you can see some growth, and you see how it works. I totally see how it works, but it destroys everything else at home. It destroys everything, and you feel like you really miss out on a lot of things. And just going back to balance and mental health, it started giving me so much anxiety.
Sure.
And like, it was just stressed me out like the most to not have balance in the touring.
Yeah.
And I love to travel. I love to play shows and hang out with my friends. And it's like, if I couldn't do that, like when we couldn't do that in COVID, whatever, I actually thought, I was like, I don't need to do this anymore. This is kind of fine. And then like we played our first show and I was like, oh man.
Yeah, never mind.
This is who I am.
Yeah.
But it was just too much. Like, gone for a month, back home for a week and a half, gone for another month. You start being this ghost that you know. So when I started touring as myself, as an artist, and getting to be in control of the amount of it, I just had to make some decisions like, you know what? Is it more expensive? Touring's really expensive, as you know.
Yeah.
It's insane. I was like, you know what? It's a bit more expensive to like take a tour that's 2 months long and cut it up into 5 months or something like that.
Yeah, in chunks.
Yeah. But that will make me mentally and probably physically just way healthier.
Yeah.
Because I have this balance. I'm actually home more than I'm away.
Yeah.
And that when I'm on tour for that length where I feel for myself, it's like just enough. And I start missing home, I go home. And then I'm home long enough where when I start missing the road, then I go back out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about like avoiding resentment and avoiding burnout and like not wanting to do it. Because when you're doing too much of one thing only, it's just, for me, it's horrible.
Avoiding resentment.
Like
That's
resenting what you do,
Yeah.
Like, that's a horrible place to be.
Something that you love so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been there.
Right.
So this is all to avoid that. And I think it works actually for, I don't want to speak for all my guys, but they appreciate it too, because when they're not touring with me, like they still do other stuff too. So it allows them to still have their foot in the door. But so it's not like full on 2 months at a time. You know, when you go to Europe, sometimes you just have to do 3 weeks or whatever, but it's frequent, but it's not relentless touring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
that's what works for me. It's not say it's going to work for everybody. And yeah, it's more expensive that way, but for now, that's how
like what's your family worth? What's your peace of mind worth? You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, if I was just, a single kid living at my parents' still in my 20s, I'd probably go on the road for 10 months of the year. It's a different thing when you have more stuff to like live for back home and just like have stuff you want to be around for. But again, it goes just back to more importantly than that, it's just like respecting the thing and not overexposing it for yourself. So you're not doing it too much where you start to be like, it becomes something you don't look forward to and don't want to do because it resembles stress or frustration or whatever.
It's like you have to protect it.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, you got to protect it and keep that right where you want it to be. You want it to be a positive thing in your life and a beautiful thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there was a time where I was go out for a tour and I would get like a pit in my stomach, so anxious. Love playing music with my friends and those shows, but like just the idea of like not being in control. I have to be away for another 3 weeks when I've only been home for a week right now. I would get so anxious.
Yeah.
And just not, now when I go out on tour, I'm like so incredibly excited. It's, I don't know. It's the best.
It seems like everyone wins in that scenario. Like you're happier, your band is happier, the fans are happier. Like the fans want to see a healthy version of you. Like
that's true. Yeah.
Like in what world does a fan want to see their favorite artist struggling?
Yeah.
Like we've all seen that. We've all seen those A-list artists, that are like, yeah, you're doing 300 shows in a year, and it's like you're tired. Like,
yeah,
you're struggling.
I'm seeing a lot of like the younger generation, like kids that are blowing up on like TikTok and stuff like that, who never toured in their life. I've had this conversation with a lot of fellow artists and bands, and they they pop off on TikTok or whatever, and they get management, they get agents, and they're like, we got to send you on tour. They're like, okay.
Yeah.
They book a tour for a month in the States, and they book them like a month in Europe, sells out immediately.
Yeah.
And they go on tour 3 or 4 shows in, and they cancel the rest of the tour because it's like they hate it. It's like it's a lot.
Yeah, I didn't know what I signed up for.
I don't know what I signed up for. I think I'm old school. So like I'm from a generation still of like build your audience,
right?
Not just online. Huge part of it is online, but like you build it also still from the ground up.
Yeah.
With hard ticket value in person.
Yeah.
And I think I just romanticize with the idea of I've always been on a stage playing, but for a lot of these younger artists, they just play in their bedroom, and like they've connected with millions of other people who like their music, and then they're like, well, yeah, you go on the road and play it, and they're like, it doesn't feel like a safe place for me. I don't like this. I'm not used to this. I totally get it.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
It's so different because, like, I mean, even for me, like, I mean, I grew up in a time where it was like you got the DVD, and on the DVD, you saw the behind the scenes of the band in the white van and trailer slugging it across the US. Like, that was like the picture of like, oh, that's like how you start touring. That's how you start a band. You get guys together, you get in a van, and you go do that. I don't think TikTok generation see it that way. Like they're able to reach millions of people.
I mean, everything
like
you just
that.
said there to the average mind sounds horrible. Like,
which is so crazy that I'm like, oh man, that looks sick. We should do that.
Yeah, well, I get it. It doesn't sound sexy at all. Bunch of stinky people like squeezing into a van, eating fast food, probably, and sitting in a car for 7 hours a day. Yeah, sounds god awful.
Yeah,
I get it. But you just got to do what you got to do to make it good. I did a tour last year for a fairly big artist, kind of a side thing that worked out. I was helping a friend out, fill in for him, and it just happened to be at a time where I was free, and it was a month long. Yeah, which is much longer than I would ever do for myself. But it was like an opportunity I had to do, and even when like the only thing that held me back from saying immediate yes was like, I don't know that I want to do 30 days or however many days it was. That's just how my brain is now. Yeah. If you're watching and you're considering calling me anyone, I'm obviously probably down, but
like I don't want to limit myself to opportunity.
No, of course not. But like at that time, I was still, it's like I'm almost triggered by too much of it. Yeah. So, but I still did it, and it was awesome. Of course. But yeah. But again, like I don't do a lot of it that long, so it was like it was fine.
And you're self-aware going in. You're going, okay, like I'm stretching myself a little bit past what I'm comfortable with, but I'm okay with that, and I'm gonna do that. And maybe you could put a few extra supports in place to help you get through that, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I mean, I'm preaching to no one because I don't do that. I just go like pedal to the metal all the time. Yeah. And I pay the consequences for it. And I'm trying to rein that in hard. So a lot of what you're saying is like speaking to me pretty hard, not gonna lie.
So you're saying you find maybe you don't have a lot of balance going on?
It's hard for me, man. It really is. Like like you were saying earlier, like I'm a driven person. Like I resonate with that. Like I'm always trying to like go. And when I slow down, I start to think. And then when I start to think, that can become a very scary place. So I stay busy, or I stay, there's always a target, like I'm always trying to move towards a target. And I think it would do me very well to maybe get a little more of that balance, and like figure out what does that look like for me to not just put the pedal down into a brick wall all the time.
Do you find like you put the pedal down into a brick wall until like success or failure too? You just like ride something out, or an idea or a concept or a project until the wheels fall off? Or it's like I feel like you probably maintain things. They keep going and going. You're just trying to like doing a project or something turns your brain off from thinking of more projects or ideas. Is that what you're saying?
Like I think I don't allow the wheels to fall off. Right. The world doesn't know. I'm still going. And from the outside looking in, Sean is good. Sean is crushing. Sean is in Asia filming. He's making something of himself. But maybe at that moment, I'm like dying inside.
Gotcha, yeah.
Yeah, where it's just like people, and for me, it's hard to be vulnerable about that because not everyone understands that. Like it can seem like everything is good, and it is good because there's good things. Yeah. But on the inside, you're like, I am not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen a lot more people try to put a spotlight on that now.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're, you know, I'm up for 5 Grammys, or I don't know, just random,
Sure.
or like I'm having this kind of success right now, but they want to let their audience know that they lost a family member and they're really struggling with it, or they're like going through some kind of health thing or mental health thing, or like some kind of internal struggle that they feel they need to share.
Yeah.
So I feel like I am seeing more people. I'm not as interested in that.
Yeah.
Too. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But I feel like I see a lot of people. We live in an age where we share, and there's also like oversharing to the max. Like the stuff I see on social media now, it's like people literally have no shame now in what they share now and talk about.
Yeah.
Like people make brands for themselves about like their IBS journey, or like
Right.
you know, whatever it is, you know,
Sure.
like crazy shit.
Sure.
It's interesting. I don't think that it's not like it's not our job to have to like. It's up to us what we want to share
Yeah.
and what you feel comfortable sharing, just like you would with your own friends.
Yeah.
Sometimes people really close to you, you're not going to really. They're going to know you pretty well, but it doesn't mean you have to tell them everything. And to a bunch of strangers, essentially, you have no responsibility to fully show. People want to see authenticity, and they want to see like the real side of someone. I get that. I want to see that.
Yeah.
I want to see someone be vulnerable. I want to see them be honest.
Yeah.
But also, it's none of my business sometimes,
Yeah.
most of the time.
And not to their detriment.
It's a privilege to hear anything from anyone.
Whoa.
Personal, I think.
Whoa.
Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And it requires like trust and consent,
Yeah.
like big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So I don't think you need to feel like that's bad.
No.
Yeah, it's going to be hard sometimes. You're a person, and life is shitty sometimes, and it's hard, and you struggle with things,
Yeah.
even if you're doing amazing things.
Yeah.
And just because you have like an amazing thing going on and a not so amazing thing correlating or like happening at the same time doesn't mean that you need to draw attention to the side that sucks.
Of course, we have to embrace the good, the bad, and everything in between. Like fixating on the bad, that can lead you down a very dark path. You got to fixate on the things that are good in life, while not
100%.
ignoring the bad.
That goes back to what we were talking about, for me at least, of like your not having success or career define your happiness or anything like that. You can have it's almost like you just need little reminders or things. I mean, like I'd say the majority these days, the majority of people exercise, not just for strength training or like cardio, but actually just mentally you feel better. It's like this escape from, and it makes, so like having things that just, it's just your perception. It's what you make of things. Yeah, I think it's kind of everything. And it's easier said than done, of course. To get there, it's tough. And some days you're not going to get there. And it's easy. I think I've found that I can recognize when I have moments where I feel like I'm like, for lack of a better term, drowning. You know, I'm like, oh, I think you're drowning. And I can be like, oh, okay. Right. I'm just kind of fixating on an idea that's really not as bad as I think it is, or I'm making something way more dramatic in my head than it is for yourself. And I have and there's like something for me to kind of like pull myself out of that.
Yeah. Like something to ground you.
Exactly.
Like I had a scenario not too long ago where I was like, I'd been traveling, different time zone, away from friends, family, and it's like disorienting. You know, you kind of live in a bubble. And I came back, and the thing that like sucked me back to reality was like one of my best friend's child. Just like their laughter. It was so like innocent. It was like, oh, right. Like no matter what's going on up here for me right now, they just want to imagine that we're in a spaceship, you know? And it's like, I could feel like I'm conquering the world's problems, you know, in my own head.
Yeah.
Like,
that's nice.
They just want to have fun. And that's like, for me, that was a moment that like grounded me. Is there things in your life that like help you do that?
I mean, I have those kind of feelings with family and friends for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I lean on them necessarily the same way.
I mean, that was like honestly a one-time experience for me. It was like, whoa, I didn't expect that to like bring me back.
Yeah.
But it totally did.
I think I just, from so many times of slipping into like a state of, oh, this is bad, or you suck, or whatever the dark place is.
Yeah.
I've just been there enough times, I think.
Yeah.
For like, to remember what the reality check is, essentially. To pull myself out, which sounds kind of sad. It's like you've been there enough times where you're like, you get into a bad mood or bad state of mind enough times, and you remember what you need to just tell yourself, or remember, essentially get yourself out of there.
Yeah.
It's more that than having like a nice thought.
I mean, that's a human experience, though.
That's a human experience, though.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by the Quigley Dream Company. At the Quigley Dream Company, we specialize in bringing your vision to life through powerful storytelling, stunning video production, and live event experiences. Whether you're looking to tell your brand story, capture unforgettable moments, or take your event to the next level, we're here to make it happen. So, if you've got a dream, visit thequigley.com to get started today.
What are the good things in your life? What are you excited about right now?
I'm excited about maybe not enough. I will always say like work and career first, and creating. That's number one. But I'm always excited, and I feel that there's importance just in improving just everyday life with my family and just at home, and just all those kind of things. That gets me excited. But I find oftentimes I am so overly focused on just one thing at a time, and that is like work.
Yeah.
Never feels like work what I do, but art, we'll call it, or my music, whatever.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's the main focus, which in a way I say it out loud sounds sad.
I don't think it does. Like I vibe with that so hard. Like I don't want to say it's an obsession, but like, dude, we become you don't, and I'm not just like pumping your tires, but like you don't get as good at guitar as you have unless there's something in you that you're obsessed with it. Like you become, you know?
Right.
And you love it.
I do.
Yeah, like it's sweet.
Yeah.
Huh.
It is, yeah. But I'm not like obsessed, I don't think, with playing guitar or singing. I'm obsessed with like doing that makes a bigger picture, which is like a song, or you know, like someone who's putting up a sound panel here. They're not excited about how they put the sound panel up. They're excited about having it perfectly leveled and it you know, making it sound better in here,
and like what it will do,
what it'll do,
what the sound panel will facilitate.
Yeah, so that's like what more so excites me. I still love to just sit down and whatever, do it, play or whatever, but what really excites me is like a stronger goal. Yeah.
I think you're a lot more macro than people think. Like I think a lot of people might associate maybe your guitar playing ability or songwriting ability, which is obviously incredible, right? But those are like the micro. You're very macro. Like you're very big picture.
Yeah.
Which is super cool. And I think is that part of what compelled you to like do the solo artist thing? Or like what was that transition? like? You wanted to paint a bigger picture.
I never wanted to be a solo artist.
But yet here you are.
But here I am. So we were, my wife was going to school over in Ireland for a few years. And of course, I was going to support and like go with her.
Yeah.
And people have asked me for years and years prior to this, like, hey, you should do a solo thing. Would you ever do that? And I was like, nah,
Right.
I don't know. I never saw attention on myself. I never saw myself that way. Even though I've written many songs for myself. And when I really first started locally, just getting gigs, I had my own band. And that's how I really started getting gigs. People would come and be like, meh, band is meh, but like we need a guitar player for this thing.
Sure.
Are you available? You sound great, whatever. So it was due to necessity. I said sayonara to a bunch of gigs. I was like, hey, I know you probably don't want to fly me from Ireland back to Canada for a tour. If you do, I'm there, but I totally understand if you don't want to. So if you want to get someone else to take my spot, I totally get it. So at the time I was fortunate because I was already kind of building an online profile and I got to meet all the right people locally right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I started being on some little gigs here and there, but I was like, this isn't really sustainable. I think I need to do something more. And all I knew was like, well, just book your own shows, book your own gigs. And I started doing that. And it's like, I'm really enjoying it. Like it had been years, it's not that, oh, wow, I'm getting all this attention. I'm just playing music like me. I'm not playing someone else's part. I'm not learning I'm just being me. And this is really fun. I forgot. So I started writing and one thing led to another and like already had a record. And so like we moved less than 2 years into that already. My first record was recorded and started playing shows, getting tours were offered. So it just kind of happened naturally by design. And then I got so deep in it that I didn't want to, it's not that I didn't want to look back. I just didn't want to turn my back on it because I felt like I put so much into it. I still feel like that. I've had a few opportunities where people have offered, do you want to play guitar for me or whatnot? And things that would have probably been really amazing. And I've never shut anything down, but stuff keeps happening where it doesn't. I keep leaning. I keep staying on this journey. Yeah. For some reason, naturally, I don't know if it's a sign or if it's just how it is. But it's such an interesting thing. I've always cared so deeply about making music and just that's who I am. But when it's your project and your business, essentially, you have to just be so much more deep in it, and you care so much more. And there's so many other things, fortunately and unfortunately, about that don't have anything to do with the art or music that you have to worry about and deal with and think about. Yeah. And that, to me, like we were saying, leads to like so much more frequent burnout, which is something I never really had before. Yep. But it is what it is. Yeah. That's just what goes with it. Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that because so Ireland, it's almost like the solo artist thing comes out of necessity in a way. And then it just feels natural and it grows and grows and grows. And I mean, to last year, Crossroads. Whoa. You know what I mean? What? Yeah. Right? Eric Clapton, Crossroads, Los Angeles. Did you think that's where you would land? No. Yeah. No. Right. Yeah, that was a trip. That was definitely one of those experiences that I said before where 15-year-old me would never in a lifetime expect that. Sure. But if it did happen, I would have seen it very differently. I see myself very nervous, and I was in a very peaceful place doing that. Right. Because life is just crazy. And I was just, a lot of people that were playing there are like friends now. It wasn't like I had to introduce myself. Yeah. Oh, hi, I'm nice to, some of them I've known for years. Yeah. And I cared deeply about being there, and I was so appreciative, but I didn't care when we were playing because I was just like, it's not like Wasn't like, we're the shit, man. Or like,
No.
we're just, there's a bunch of us here and we're all just us. And I'm just me. That's great. I'm the only me here. And wasn't looking over my shoulder like, is this good enough? Does someone care? Maybe this sucks. And that's fine if it does. And I was really happy if it sucked or if it was fine. Like, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
I was just happy to be there. It was great.
Sounds like a very healthy place to be.
That's where it is. And that's where I always try to be. Sometimes you're going to be put in situations that push you and you're not going to feel that like content like we were talking about. And that's good too, because it pushes. In music, they always say you want to be the worst in the room because you're always learning from other people. I still feel that way. You don't want to, I never want to be feeling like I'm above anyone. I'm not ever above anyone. I don't see myself as that or never feel that way. But, you know, in terms of like the art, or like if you're with some musicians that you feel are like incredible, like put me with them. I want to be absolute trash compared to them. I want to learn from them. You know, I want to be pushed. It's a good place to always be. It goes back to never settling and that kind of thing, you know? Yeah. I was going to say something else and it completely deserted my mind.
Yeah.
But maybe it'll come back to me.
It feels like all things at the right time, you know? And like I was thinking about this while I was listening through your catalog, and I've done that quite a few times. And like a reoccurring theme is time.
Yeah.
A recurring theme is time. And I think like I'm visualizing it in my head, like just that slow process of you never arrive. You know, you don't really know when you start sometimes.
Yeah.
And you don't know when you arrive. And like, if you're just content with this is me right now, I'm not trying to be me 5 years from now. I'm not trying to look back on 5 years ago. You're just content. That's a really healthy place to be, man.
Yeah. So don't get me wrong. Like, I'm still insecure, like anyone is.
Of course.
We all are.
Of course.
But I think I'm a lot less insecure than a lot of people.
Sure.
Because of that. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
We all are, no matter what.
Of course.
I think if more people just like when you're in a bad place, you remind yourself of something to pull yourself out of that. You just need something to remind yourself that like it's cool to be you. you know?
Yeah.
You don't need to be another so-and-so because we got one of those.
Yeah.
We don't have one of you, whatever that means.
Yeah.
It does not mean that you don't have to put any work in because it's just like, oh, I'm me. I can just kind of suck, but kind of be okay. But that's pure art because I'm original and it has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Put the work in. Like,
yes.
Of course, like be great, but just outside of that.
Yeah.
Just be more comfortable with yourself. Accept your good things and your bad things. And don't compare. If you can. Try not to.
That's
easier
awesome.
said than done.
Yeah, no, that's so true, man. And like, I mean, that's kind of the whole point of this Dreamcast, I'm calling it, right? Like, I think when I communicate or have conversations with dreamers, and I'd put you in that category. You're a dreamer, man. Like, you're a visionary. You're seeing big picture. Like, and you're going out there and you're getting it. I think other people, like, along that journey are just going to benefit so much from hearing you say that. Like maybe someone else, like someone else earlier in that journey is going to be like, maybe I could do that too. Like maybe I can figure out what those things are for me instead of throwing in the towel.
Well, I've definitely felt, if I've ever felt like I could do something, whether I could or couldn't, it was because I was inspired by hearing someone else similarly talk about it.
Yeah.
You know? So I hope if it can help with anyone in that sort of way, that's fantastic. I'm all for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you for lending the time. Like, thank you for coming down and doing this and being open, you know? And
it's my pleasure, man.
Yeah. And like, this has just been really insightful to me. Like, I'm going to think about this conversation for a while. And I think other people are going to benefit greatly from it. Not that that's the goal, but I think it could be an outcome. And if it is an outcome, then I'm like really stoked about that.
Well, I loved it. Great chatting with you as always, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Quigley Dreamcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and found it as inspiring and insightful as I did. If you loved this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It really helps us reach more dreamers like you. And if something in today's episode resonated with you, feel free to share it with a friend or on your social media platform. Finally, if you're out there chasing your dreams, remember, it's not always easy, but it's always worth it. Keep going, stay inspired, and we will see you next time on the Quigley Dreamcast.